Okay, I saw Godzilla Minus One. This is the latest Japanese Godzilla movie. Feels funny that I have to say Japanese Godzilla movie when really I should be specifying like American Godzilla movie for the ones that are made in America, because Godzilla is a Japanese franchise, but it got wide release here in the States, which is pretty unusual for a Japanese Godzilla movie. I don't think Shin Godzilla got a wide theatrical release. I don't think Godzilla Final Wars did, but I am going to maybe surprise some of you, but this is actually the first Japanese Godzilla film that I have seen all the way through. I've seen bits of others, but this is the first one that I've actually seen all the way through. And you know how the general rule for Godzilla movies is that the humans are just there to fill time until they can afford to bring out the monsters again? Well, in this movie, I found myself at points going, why are we spending so much time on this Godzilla battle when there's a human interest story I want to watch? Like, this actually has like a really solid human cast. The film is set right after World War II, and it's a film about the devastation and shame Japan carried after losing the war. The main character is a kamikaze pilot who deserted, and that's, you know, the shame of that, of not doing his duty and sacrificing his life for what was ultimately a futile effort. That is a conflict that he has to deal with through the whole movie. Most of the human cast, they're a found family. It's people who lost everything and everyone in the war. They come together first out of necessity, but then they grow to become a family together. Godzilla himself looks great. He's cartoonish a little bit because they're trying to go for that, you know, man in a rubber suit aesthetic without looking cheap. The special effects look really good. There are bits of it where some of the animation is a little more exaggerated than you would see in a Western movie where they're trying to make it look more realistic. This Godzilla is a little bit more cartoonish than the one in the Legendary films. The way that he walks, it makes me think of the old inaccurate models of T-Rex, right back in like the early 20th century, late 19th century, where they pictured him as standing upright with his tail dragging on the ground. And the way that Godzilla kind of holds his arms actually look pretty small, kind of T-Rexy. So like that feels like the aesthetic that they were going for, is the old idea of how T-Rex would have moved around. There's also the animation of him charging up his atomic breath is super cool. He's got his back spikes. They like kind of jut out and like glow blue, starting from the tail tip moving all the way up to his head. And like it's a really satisfying like chunk as they all like stick out one by one. That's a really cool animation. It's nice to see. I mean, obviously everything at some point, like cinema kind of emerged out of Hollywood initially. So there's a lot of stuff that pretty much every other culture that has their own cinema has taken things from Hollywood. And there's a lot of that here. But it's also nice to just see what Japanese exclusive aesthetics you would have in a film like this. And that carries forward into the animation itself. No Redux says, isn't that from the US Godzilla? He did charge up his atomic breath by glowing blue along his spine in the US Godzilla. But very specifically, it's the back spikes sticking out as he's charging up. It's not just a glowing thing, it's they like stick out more as he charges up. It was a really cool effect. I don't know how well I'm able to describe it with voice, but that's really good. The film is also kind of an indictment of world powers and the Cold War, because like as Godzilla is showing up in post-war Japan, you know, right after World War II is over, it's just I think the movie spans from like 45 to 47 or 48. And even though Godzilla is showing up and like attacking Japan, the US won't move to help because the USSR is like, oh, I don't know, sending the US Navy that close to the Asian coastline. We don't like that. So basically, you know, the two world powers at the time, they're not interested in helping Japan, and Japan's military has been gutted because of the war. So the film is kind of like an indictment about how the Cold War kind of screwed over the world, because, you know, here you have these world powers who could ostensibly deal with Godzilla, if not for, you know, their petty squabbles and their desire for power more than, you know, protecting the world or anything like that. But there's also like still with that indictment of the world governments, there's a lot of like national pride that's interwoven through the film. Very Japanese characteristic national pride. It's a pride in the people, not in the government. But it's also like there's kind of almost like a quasi-fascist vibe to it, because it is like ultimately the governments aren't helping, so it's private industry that gets together. And so like it's the national pride around the private industry, which kind of has like the early vibes of like the way that, you know, fascism arose in like, say, Nazi Germany, with the combination of national pride and nationalizing industry. I don't know if I'm explaining this super well, but just like I said, there was a little bit of a touch of kind of a fashy vibe there. But overall, I don't think it ruins the movie. I really quite enjoyed the movie. And like I said, the main character was a former kamikaze pilot, a deserted kamikaze pilot, and the film really addresses like head on the guilt that he feels for deserting, but also the film like takes an objective stance against the use of kamikaze pilots. And I think it comes to a very satisfying conclusion at the peak of the storytelling. I really liked this movie, and I would recommend seeing it. It was good. Hey, thanks for watching. Your view means a lot. Don't forget to toss me a like and subscribe and ring the bell. I stream Mondays and Fridays at 5 p.m. Pacific and Sundays at 2 p.m., so catch me live and join in on the convo. You can find all my socials in the description below, and thank you to all my patrons, with a very special shout out to my Whale Shark tier patron Ryan D and my Anemone friend tier patron Pistol Cakes. Your support means the world. Catch you next time.